Hi everyone, it's Elise. I know it's been a while, but I'm back with another Scrabble update. I just finished playing in the 32-round tournament in Albany, New York. And whew, what can I say? It was a really long one. It was super exhausting, but it also was a lot of fun. I got to meet up with a lot of my really great Scrabble friends. We cheered each other on, we played lots of after-hours variants and things like that, so that was awesome. But in terms of the actual competitive aspect of the tournament, I'm still kind of trying to come to terms with how I feel like I played. And I think part of that will just come as I begin to put more of my score sheets into the computer and figure out more objectively what I could have done differently. But yeah, my subjective sense of the tournament is that it was very inconsistent. So on the one hand, I came in with the goal of coming in 10th place, or at least cracking the top 10. In my division, the lower division of Collins, everyone who placed from 1 through 10 would get a cash prize. So I thought that would be a good thing to shoot for. And I did manage to achieve that goal, so I came in 10th place, and that was really nice. But on the other hand, my road to get there was just super rocky. So the first day of the tournament, I went 3-5, so I lost a lot of my games. And most of the games that I lost, I thought were pretty winnable, so I was a little bit disappointed. I just had bad time management, made blunders in the end game, missed kind of obvious stuff. And so I feel like I threw away a lot of games that I should have been able to clinch. So I went back to my hotel room just feeling really upset, kind of saying to myself, oh my god, why do I even study Scrabble if I'm just gonna lose all my games? I'm coming in last in this tournament, this is awful. Luckily, after that, the next day I woke up with a little bit of a better attitude, and I managed to go 7-1, so I won almost all of my games, and started to build up a little bit of momentum and confidence. Unfortunately, that confidence was dashed when on day 3 I went 1-7, so I did even worse than on day 1. And you know, the shining light was that at least those games on day 3 were really interesting. I felt like they were hard-fought battles and that they had a lot to teach me. So that made me feel a little bit better emotionally. But at the end of the day, I just pretty much thought, oh, this tournament is a wash. I'm gonna end in the middle of the pack or worse. That's too bad. And then, you know, the next day, day 4, I go in, I'm joking with my roommates, okay, I just have to go 8-0. And what do you know, I start winning games, and winning games by a lot of points, which actually turned out to matter because my spread going into the day was super negative, but through these kind of blowout wins that kept accruing, I was actually getting my spread back into the positive numbers. And I actually did go 8-0. So I went on this big winning streak and just barely cracked 10th place. So that was pretty crazy. And I'm not really sure how much of that winning streak was just due to luck. I did feel like the tiles kind of smiled upon me, and things were just going my way and flowing. But on the other hand, I do think I also had a better psychology going into the last day. I was almost too tired and kind of too checked out to really be in my own head too much. I kind of just put on the blinders, put my head down, and got the job done. So I'm going to reflect a bit more on how I can maybe reach this mindset earlier in a tournament, before it's too late. Like if I had played on day 1 how I had played on day 4, I think things would have been a lot different. But yeah, those are my general thoughts of the tournament, and I'm really, really excited to make some analysis videos and dig into all the specifics of these games. There's a lot to go over, and I think I'll learn a lot, and hopefully I can share some of that knowledge with you. So stay tuned in the coming weeks for some of those videos. And in the meantime, I don't want to leave you without Scrabble content, so I thought I would conclude this video by looking at a fun endgame that I played in a training session right before Albany. So I met up with a few players in my area and we played a few games, and I reached a really kind of non-intuitive, cool position in one of them. So without further ado, let's take a look at that. So I found myself in this position against Matt O'Connor. We're about halfway through the game and I'm on the back foot. Luckily, I draw into a really cool word of tuatera, which is something I've always wanted to play as a lover of reptiles and animals. And this puts me back in striking range, but things are still a little bit dicey. Matt responds with Brared for a bunch of points, and already I find myself in another tricky situation. I draw into this rack, and I have a choice between playing Equinia to the triple word for 52, or playing something for slightly fewer points like Quite. I opt for this because I'm holding on to a U, and I figure that I'm going to be slightly behind and I want to keep the board a little bit volatile. Matt keeps up the scoring pressure with Renee, and then disaster strikes. I overdraw and I have to throw my U back into the bag. Still, in the moment, I feel like I'm kind of bailed out because although I don't have a play with QU, I can still play Kaid or Kadi to the triple word, scoring a good number of points. And a quick sim with Macondo seems to confirm my feelings here. Although I'm obviously not commandingly winning, I seem to have some chances to come back in this game. But here comes the surprising part. If I run a deeper simulation, it turns out that Kaid actually wins 0% of the time. It gives me no chances to take this game. To better understand this, let's take a look at some of the racks that Macondo initially thought would lead to a win after Kaid, and see what would happen if I drew them. So let's say that I draw PS. This would leave Matt with this rack, and we might think that he would want to make the most of his Z here, so he'd probably play Za for 21. In response, I'd probably play Cup for 27 underneath. Then Matt might cash in his valuable UN to make the extension of Unvexed from Vexed. And although he seems pretty far ahead, I could just barely squeak by going out with Snuff. And here I win by 10 points after everything's said and done. But in this sequence, we're assuming that Matt is going to lead by playing off his Z, and that he's going to play the Unvexed extension kind of early on in this endgame. In reality, my tiles are so clunky that he can actually slow roll me and win this endgame by a lot. Let's take a look at one way that he might do that. So instead of playing Za immediately, Matt can block my plays like Cup by playing And in response, there's really not much for me to do on this board. I have a shortage of vowels, and my aim is probably just to offload as many consonants as possible, so I might play something like Fin in the bottom left. I still can't go out in one, so Matt is under no pressure to play off his Z or to play Unvexed immediately. He can play Jun for just 10 points, retaining his good high-scoring stuff for next turn. My S can give me some points here, so I can play Spar for 15. And Matt has a Z play open, so he can play Zip down the J column. But he also could just play Unvexed here. Either way, I can't go out with CF. I can drop my F with Fam for 12, but it's not going to be enough. And at the end of this sequence, I end up losing by 22 points. It's a similar story with the SU draw. If Matt leads by playing Zap, a better version of Za in this case because he has the P, now I can respond with Cuffin. Things are a little bit different because I have a vowel now, so I have a little bit more flexibility. Matt doesn't have two U's this time, so he'll want to play Unvexed immediately. And in response, the best I can do is drop my S for 17 points, which ends up tying the game. But okay, although I have a vowel this time, Matt still can slow roll me and actually set up his Z. So he can play something like None, not playing Za immediately or Zap. In response, I still probably want to play Cuffin. I just don't have the tiles to block this setup in an efficient way. Matt can hit back with Zip now for 51. And once again, I go out by dropping my S for 17. And Matt wins here by 2 points, rather than tying the game. Finally, let's take a look at what happens if I draw both U's. Once again, if Matt leads with a play like Zap, I can pull out a win. So let's say he plays Zap for 34. My vowels give me the potential to go out in 2. But rather than playing something like Cuffin first and offloading all of my consonants, I'm actually better off playing Ute at the bottom to block some of Matt's higher scoring plays with his S, making quites. So now Matt can only play off his S with Cos and Ooze for 17. Then I can go out with Cuffin, ultimately winning by a margin of 4 points. But okay, Matt actually has a way of stopping my win here. If he realizes that I'm going to go out with Cuffin, rather than playing off his S, he can play the really low-scoring play of Nisin, allowing himself to go out on the next turn. It might seem like I have enough firepower to win this endgame. After all, I have the UN to play Unvexed for 32 points. But if I do that, Matt will just go out with Wem and M for 12 points next turn, and I'll be stuck with CFF on my rack. So once the points for that get added to Matt's score, he'll actually win by quite a bit. So these examples illustrate that while it seems like Kaid might win in certain cases, Matt can always kind of cook up some sort of counter response. But that raises the question, if Kaid doesn't win, do I have any other winning plays in this pre-endgame? And it actually turns out that I do. So it turns out that the right idea for me here is to ignore the Q spot altogether and to play off a bunch of tiles with the word fanfic for 37 points. This wins with almost every I draw, the exception being the draw of IZ, where the Z becomes more of a liability than an asset. Let's take a closer look at what's going on here. So let's say that I draw I and M. In this case, Matt has UN, but fanfic blocks the unvexed hook, so that's out of play now. And Matt can't really address the Q spot even though he has the U, because he would need another vowel to be able to play a word that hits the triple. So instead, his best bet is to play something like Zupan or Zupas through the A in fanfic for a bunch of points. But then, because I have the I can go out making words that make QI for a lot of points right back. So I could play dim for 29, and this wins me the game. And you can see how this logic applies for an IN draw, an IP draw, or an IS draw. Just replace dim with din, dip, or dis, and it's the same thing. And if I draw UI here, it's easy to see that instead of playing an overlapping play with QI, I can go out with a play like Quid and win by even more points. So yeah, if I were to play this endgame all over again, I think I would have told myself not to tunnel vision so much on this Q spot. It is really important in this endgame, but there are also other threats lurking in the background, so I need to be thinking about this hook on vexed, making unvexed. I need to be thinking about the Z that might be in the bag and where that can play. And I also need to be thinking about the fact that I have a lot of consonants and vowels are really sparse here. So rather than insta-playing Kaid and thinking, oh, this gives me a lot of points, I should have stopped and thought, well, okay, this gives back a big Z spot for one. It gets rid of two vowels in the form of my I and A, and it actually doesn't play off that many tiles. So if I'm in a race to go out, I'm probably going to lose that race, and that might be a concern. It's hard to just leave the Q spot open, knowing that in some cases Matt will draw what he needs to play there and just win. But considering everything that I've mentioned, it's probably best just to keep it open and take my chances. But yeah, I'm still puzzling through all of this, so if you have any other insights, please let me know in the comments. I'm really curious to hear what you all think.